Mike, let's start off what you think. I know you have A&M winning, but let's start off what you think this game comes down to for both teams. Like A&M wins if, Texas wins if.
Yeah, Texas A&M wins if they just show us who they've been the entire season. And what exactly does that mean? It means they can win high scoring, they can win low scoring, they can win defensively, the game's on the line, and Marcel Reed's got to cash it in with a touchdown. We can go any route you want to go. And I just think that favors them so much in this football game because Texas is so one-dimensional, particularly on offense. They can't run the football. I don't think you can beat an elite team like A&M being that one-dimensional. I really don't.
Yeah, I agree with you, Mike. I don't know how much you know about my Aggie-ness when I put the fan hat on, not the analyst hat on, and sometimes they're the same person. But like I have been really confident this season. Where in years past, I'd be like, well, I'd poke a little bit more holes in us mentally, right? And this year, look, I recognize that Texas has got some studs, right? There's no doubt about it. Talent-wise, what they've done the last couple of years, I recognize all that. But what I've seen is an A&M team that, like, if they need to run the ball, they find a way to run the ball. If they need to throw the ball deep and get explosive plays, they can do that. If they need some sacks and put you on 3rd and long, they can do that. So I'm not typically this optimistic, even when things are kind of like last year when they were 7-1 heading to South Carolina. I believed in them a little bit, but not the same way I believe in them now.
Yeah, and it's what a credit that is to Coach Elko. He's getting the most out of his talent, whereas a guy like Sarkisian, I don't want to say getting the least out of the talent, but it's not far off. Not a punt return here, a punt return there. Texas has probably got 6, maybe 5 losses heading into this matchup. So, I mean, that's a big reason why A&M, if they win this game, I think they should be favored and will win in Atlanta the following week, regardless of who they play.
Well, Mike, when it comes to Texas's issues recently defensively, so I still think of them as the defense that I saw against Ohio State, as the defense that I saw early on. I know Oklahoma doesn't have much of an offense, but we were still thinking that Mateer was maybe a potential Heisman kind of guy, right? So I still think of him that way, but what we've seen the last, 4 or 5 weeks is like 35-plus points, right? What has happened to the Texas defense? Have they been exposed, or has it just been the way the games have been played?
I think they've had some injuries in the front 7. Now, everybody has injuries, so that's not really an excuse. But I think the biggest thing watching Texas is just how out of sorts they seem to be on the back end. And the communication is such a – particularly that Georgia game comes to mind where Mike Bobo, there was been so many times where Georgia fans want to run that guy off. It was a master class where it seemed like 4 or 5 different times he knew how to attack Texas defense and leave them with no answers on how to stop Gunnar Stockton. And I think Gunner's a nice player, but I don't think he's elite by any means. But Texas defense certainly made him look that way. So it was the defense that was holding this whole thing together, David. And even now that's fallen apart for the Longhorns.
Talking to SEC Mike here on TexAgs Live, presented by David Gardner's Jewelers, Rollo Insurance Studio. I want to ask you about Pavia. I'm going to work my way back to A&M, but you had a tweet that said if Diego Pavia will win the Heisman if Vanderbilt beats Texas. What is it about Pavia that just is, at right now, he's kind of under that line, but if he wins this game, you think will be above that line?
Well, I think for a lot of the Heisman voters, they'll really respect going into such a hostile environment and winning a crucial game. But if you haven't watched him already, I mean, he's just so dynamic. And I know there's been the Johnny Manziel comparisons for some of the plays he's made, particularly I'm thinking back to the LSU game. But he is really an elite passer. I mean, in terms of SEC, I believe he's up there with, I think he's top 2 or 3 in passing yards. He's number 1 in passer rating. He's number 1 in completion percentage. They are able to push the ball down the field. And he is just such a driving force for Vanderbilt and this potential playoff run that they're in. But I think he needs a big game against a quality opponent on the road, something that he had some turnovers against Alabama, Texas. They started too slow, and they tried to catch up, but it was too little, too late. I think he needs a big game to kind of get the attention of more Heisman voters.
All right. Well, let's say that happens, and Marcel Reed does his thing tonight against Texas and in the SEC championship game, how does that kind of change the way you look at the Heisman?
Yeah, well, and then in my mind, it's Diego and Marcel 1-2, and put that in any order. It's going to be fascinating to see how they do that. But I just wonder, fair or not to Marcel, and it's probably not fair, but I think a lot of the people will look at just what a story Vanderbilt is. I mean,
Yeah.
Vanderbilt may never do this ever again if they go 10-2, and they may not make the college football playoff. And whether they do or don't, that in my mind that shouldn't be held against Diego Pavia, but it may.
All right, that'll do it for the free part of this interview. For the extended version, please go to texags.com/subscribe and become a premium subscriber. And if you're a Texas A&M student, you can get that for free. So check it out, texags.com/subscribe.